Welcome to the Bridge Church Midweek podcast. We exist to connect people with others and God. We hope this week's episode helps you do just that. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bridge Church Midweek podcast. This is Pastor Tyler Wolf. I am the campus pastor at our Oconomowoc campus, and I'm here with a couple of legends in Bridge Church terms, missionaries. We love you guys. So we are here with Dave and Carmi Buckley. How you guys doing?
Doing good,
great.
thanks.
Good. Welcome to the podcast studio. So the reason we record these podcasts is because we believe one of the primary functions of the local church is not just to get in a room together once a week and sing songs and hear a sermon. That's important, and we'll do that. But we believe we also exist for missionaries all over the world. And as we support missionaries, we also believe that we can be edified by missionaries as they share about what they're doing in a place that we may never go, that we may never see. And so over the next few minutes, I want to hear about your guys' story. But before we get there, would you just each take a turn to introduce yourselves?
My name is Dave Buckley. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, came to Wisconsin in the 1990s, and found a lovely little girl, and her name is Carmi, and she is now my wife.
I am Carmi Buckley. Dave and I have been married for 27 years this year, 28 maybe. So anyway, in November, we have two kids. They're both in college at North Central University in Minneapolis. Weston is a junior, and Jelaine, our daughter, is a freshman this year.
Nice.
Just starting school. So we are now officially empty nesters.
Did you guys go to North Central?
I did.
You did. And you're a
I did
Wisconsin
not.
born and raised?
I grew up in Missouri, but always knew we
Okay.
were from Wisconsin. So
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
I went to college out somewhere else.
Nice.
I'll just say it that way.
Okay.
It's now empty.
It's now no longer a school. So.
Oh, okay. Nice. You know what? The ministry school that I went to is no longer a school either. So you're in decent company. Decent enough. Nice. Well, I know you guys had a chance to share on our Wednesday night, but for those that were not able to be there, maybe they're in Alpha or whatever else, where, actually, you know what? I want to start with a different question. Would you mind sharing about your call into missions, and then we can get into what that mission is?
Okay.
I'm curious to hear about when it was that the Lord called you guys to leave the comforts of the United States and go somewhere far from home.
Yeah. I think I always say that I was 15 years old when I felt that I had a call to missions on my life. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I had the opportunity to go on a short-term trip to Portugal when I was a senior in high school. Went to North Central thinking I can be a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher. Went to North Central, I'll be a teacher. And whether married or unmarried, I can do something in an overseas setting.
Yeah.
So that was my path into missions, was thinking I didn't necessarily study missions at North Central. I studied education. So I always thought I could be a teacher overseas because, anybody can serve in an overseas capacity with any degree at this stage of life. So, yeah.
Wow. And what about you?
Yeah, I was called at 15 also, but not the same time as my Carmi was, because there's an age difference between us. And so, but I felt like it was at a prayer service, and it was the end of the prayer service, and I felt like I needed to go to Europe, and so I studied German in high school and went on a missions trip a couple times, and we felt like I felt like it should be Europe, but we didn't know where in Europe. And then we got it. We went on a missions trip together to Romania and to Hungary.
After you got married?
After we got married, and it was at that time we were coming from Romania into Hungary that we felt like this is where we should be.
Wow.
And that's when we're like, okay, let's just do this, and we just pursue it out. There was other things that are happening. The wall hasn't fallen yet, and communism was by the time we were there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, God just opened up doors that needed to be open, and he actually closed doors that needed to be closed. Mm-hmm. And so we were just like, okay, this is the way we're going. And we followed, we felt like the Lord was leading us into Hungary, and the Hungarian church invited us there and accepted us. And we felt very blessed by them, and we've been happy ever since.
Can I ask, what were you guys doing for work when you lived full time in the United States before you went full time?
I was a youth pastor at Kenosha First Assembly, now called Journey Church.
Yeah.
And was doing that in Carmi.
I was a teacher at a private non-sectarian school in the Kenosha area.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's fascinating.
I know. It was hard being a youth pastor, huh?
Somebody asked me today, dude, they asked me if I miss being a youth pastor, expecting me to say no. I'm like, yeah, I miss it every day. You know? I love what I'm doing, but yeah, there's just nothing better than hanging out with students, you know? Yeah. But, you know, the reason I ask is because you guys are, I imagine, fairly comfortable until you get that unsettled feeling where you just have to go. I'm sure you guys know Steve Tripp. He was, you know, former pastor of this church. Now he's district youth director for Wisconsin Northern Michigan. He shared with me a phrase that changed the way I look at things, where many people might think about missions. I will go if he makes me, essentially, or if he asks me. And Steve says, I'll stay as long as he makes me. In that there's, once you get unsettled and burdened for a group of people or a demographic, staying is the sacrifice. When you got to go, you got to go. So I love hearing about people's calling. So tell me about where you guys live overseas, and then I just give it to you guys to take it away. What does a day in the life of a missionary look like? Yeah. What is your ministry, where you're at? Any and everything you want to share with us. We're all ears.
So actually yesterday, September 21st, was our 22nd anniversary of leaving for the country of Hungary.
Wow.
So we officially left in 1999, went to Hungary, lived in a small city close to the Croatian border. It was called Pécs. And initially, when we looked at Hungary, there was already missionaries in the capital city of Budapest. So they said, hey, we really would prefer not to send any more missionaries to there. So would you be interested in working in another city? Because Dave and I have a philosophy: you're called to a country or you're called to a ministry. And we feel like we've been called to Hungary. So we were willing to do whatever it took to be in that country, where some people are called to a ministry and then they find the country that they're supposed to go to.
Wow.
So we were at first doing sort of like a Chi Alpha in the country.
Okay.
We started university ministry groups on the different campuses of the country, and we had up to 7, I believe, going on at one time. It meant traveling around, things like that. And then we felt a burden to go to the next step. And, you know, I felt like there was a change happening. We both felt it at that time. We ended up in, just to give you a quick thing, in Springfield, Missouri, working for the national office, the Europe office. Carmi directed the children's ministry, and I helped with the regional director at that time. And then we both felt after that God was calling us back to Hungary, which was, you know, our kids were younger at that time. And so to take them over, they was experiencing American schools and systems and things like that. But to take them over was a crucial time period, because if you take them any later, then we felt like that could really mess them up.
Sure.
So we went over to Hungary, and we felt called back to Hungary, and we started we planted an international church there in Hungary.
Wow.
And that was actually 7 years ago on the 21st.
Yesterday.
Wow.
So the 21st is really important to us.
Yeah, for sure.
So we planted a church, and it's going really well. As of today, we have roughly around 150 people that attend. Some 25 to 30 different nations are there. Almost every denomination's in our church. We have 2 services. It's all done in English. We have people that come, and our students, our business people, our Hungarians that live there, our retired people. They all come, and it's just been going really well, and we feel very blessed about that.
Yeah, and I don't think we really said, but it is an English-speaking church, so everything in our context is English-speaking. The Hungarian fellowship that we work under, they're the ones that invited us to start this church, and so so it's been it was never in our idea of what we would do, but it was obviously God's idea, because we just kind of went into it saying we have no idea what we're doing.
So we feel called to Hungary. So the Hungarians are like, hey, can you do this? And we're like, okay.
I mean,
we prayed about it, and we felt like the Lord said, let's
so
just
you're
do
saying you didn't foresee planting a church?
Oh, no.
No. Yeah. And in that role, so obviously you guys planted the church and you are the lead pastors of that international church.
Yes.
Tell me, I feel like maybe it's fairly obvious, but international church, is it known in the community this is an international church, and what does that mean?
An international church, it's called Riverside Church Budapest.
Okay.
And so just having the name in English definitely tells the Hungarians or whoever's visiting that country that that's an international church. We do also say that we are an international church. In other words, we accept people from all different nations to come to our church.
Okay.
And so that's what it really means. And it's everything is done in a certain language, which is the English language that we speak. And the services, the songs, we do break out. We do have like a small group that is Spanish speaking.
Cool.
We try to break out in the Hungarian groups and things like that. But we basically our main focus is on with the English language and to do church that way.
Yeah. Are there people that attend your church that are from the United States and have, for whatever reason, ended up in Budapest?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just it. For one, Budapest is a huge hub for many different businesses into Eastern Europe. So GE, Audi has Philips, the light bulbs. In fact, Dave was at Fleet Farm and bought a light bulb, and it was made in Hungary here in Wisconsin. So anyway, so like there's all kinds of businesses over there. So it's kind of a big corporate headquarters for a lot. Exxon has a big facility over there as well. So we have families from our church that work for Exxon.
And they're from the United States?
They're Americans. Yep. This particular couple lived in Wisconsin, Minnesota. So anyway, so there's all diverse different things. And, maybe the spouse is, for example, there's a situation where the husband is from Wisconsin, but the wife is from Hungary. So they found our church and started to attend. So there's a huge hub of missionaries there. There's there's a great international school there. There's international Christian schools. So there's a lot of Americans and expats within the city of Budapest from all different countries.
And the university system is really well done.
Oh,
and then
true.
we have a lot of, for instance, Africans and a lot of Latin Americans that come over for the school itself, the university there. Mm-hmm. And so they'll stay there for either 3 months, 6 months, 3 years or so. And they want to, they're looking for a time where they can meet people and stuff like that. And that's where Riverside Church comes into play.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. I hadn't thought about that up until now, but you think about a missionary going to a foreign country to reach the people from that foreign country, but to be able to meet the need for people that are from your native country that have wound up there for business or whatever.
And many of those,
is pretty special.
Right, and many of those people are there because they have to be.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you got a job assignment there, so you're moving there. You're trying to find a school. You're trying to find public transportation, a car, a place to rent and things like that. And it becomes very hard. And living in another culture and not being trained for that is hard, too. So they're looking for a place of refuge, and their hearts are open to hearing something that's different. And they say, they have something going on. We should join it because it's all in English.
Yeah.
And so they're really excited about that.
Wow. Well, and like you're saying, many of them those of your people that grew up in the United States they're living in a foreign country. I feel like there's a certain shift in thinking and perspective that, like you're saying, might foster a certain type of openness.
Yeah.
Especially when it's heavy on your heart to be far from family and all that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have to go down in some sense to start to look up.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool deal that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, like I think too, the reality being is that when you're in a situation like this where you're in another country and you see needs, you want to help. So as a church too, we try to give those opportunities, whether it's homeless ministry for, it's a pretty, every big city has homelessness, or working with children in a children's home, those kinds of things. We can provide as a church then outlets for the people who are technically visiting or living there temporarily, the expats in the community, to then give them opportunities to do ministry. Yeah. And that's always, I feel like, I think people are more open to doing that in the context out of their own country.
Wow.
The thing that I love the best about an international church is getting together on Sunday morning and visiting somebody that you never met someone from that country before, you know, and you get to hear their accent, and you get to hear, you know, this, maybe they dress a little bit different, or maybe their Bible is a little bit different than ours, but they love the Lord, you know, and that the light of Christ shines in their eyes is the same as any American too. And so it's really cool to see the different nationalities come together, and on a Sunday morning, and we're all singing together and worshiping, just like, you just sit there and think, oh, this is what heaven's going to be
Absolutely.
like. Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Now, so my two last questions. Would you share with me about the unique challenges in the area that you're in, the drugs that are ruining lives, like the specific drugs, assuming that it's not a drug-free area, you know what I mean, like that one window of the world. But what are the struggles, whether it be a type of drug or mentalities? What makes your area challenging? And then I would just hand it off to you guys to share any testimonies or stories from your ministry to encourage our people.
I can think right away of the fact that just for Hungarians think they're Christians because their culture says that they're Christians. In the year 1000, an angel came, spoke to the king of the, you know, he had this vision or whatever. Anyway, so he decides, hey, one day everybody's a Christian in the country. So Hungarians think they're Christians. And to be honest, the Hungarian leader has been on the American news a lot in the last little bit because he kind of has a more conservative stance on a lot of things. But the reality is they don't have a personal relationship with Jesus. And that's really what you want to have people to come to a knowledge of. So we might have people who come in or from another country, or we've had people come from Middle Eastern countries that come in and are just curious and they want that opportunity to know. So as far as like, I think one of the hardest things, I don't think of necessarily like drugs or alcoholism as a pretty prolific thing in our country because it's just so inexpensive to buy alcohol.
And legal.
Yeah, right.
That's an extra challenge, actually.
Yeah, right. So I think it's more just those kinds of, that kind of, Hungary's considered a more economically depressed country within the European Union. Their salaries are minimal. Some of the things that they offer as a country are not as expansive as what the rest of the EU would be. Sure. So people want to make money. They want to leave the country and to leave. So there's a hopelessness that can be there. It's not very often when you walk down the street that people are smiling per se. Once you smile at them, they'll smile back. But there's just this overall, like, we're sort of this poor, sad country. So that, I think, is the hopelessness of that is pretty prevalent.
Wow. And that has to present a unique challenge for them. So for Nominal Christians, because I would rather have some issue that makes me so aware of my desperate need for Jesus, like a gaping wound, so to speak, rather than be bleeding internally and not know it. Like it might look like a more life-threatening issue, but at least you need help. But to just think you're good when you're not good, that's pretty heartbreaking. Yeah. So what? Any testimonies you'd share from your ministry? Any lives changed or anything like that? I'd welcome any of that.
Last August, not this year, last year, got an email from a guy. I don't know who he was. He says, "Hey, I'd like to meet you with coffee. I come from a Middle East country. I'll just say it that way. And I would like to meet with you to see if you can answer some of my questions." So I had decided to go have coffee with him. I went into the coffee shop, and I was expecting to meet one person. I ended up meeting two other people with him. So there's three guys. And it was kind of like, I was not expecting this, but it's a very popular coffee shop and things like that. And so I started talking with them, and they are from a Middle East country. And he basically said that they gave me their testimony. They said that we want to know Jesus Christ. We've come to realize that he's the one that we need to serve. And so, they talked about their home life in their Middle East country and things like that, and how hard it was to be a Christian. And they knew that in their country that they needed to accept Christ. And so it was really hard. And one of them was having a dream that he was drowning in water. Wow. And someone was walking on the water and pulled him up. And he didn't know about that. And so they decided that they would ask another friend, a fourth friend, if they can have a Bible. And they said, well, we'll have to smuggle a Bible that's in your language to you. And so they did. And they had the Bible with them, and they had it covered with a wrap, so you couldn't read the words on the outside because they knew that they'd get in trouble. And so they had their Bible, and they said, we started reading the Bible. And I read the story about Peter being in the water and how he was drowning, and Jesus pulled him up. And I knew at that moment that was Jesus calling me to come serve him. So we became Christians at that moment, and we left the country, and we want to know if we can come to your church. And so we're like, yes, you can come. And so they came in, and we plugged them. We gave them brand new Bibles and material to read in their native language. And then it was a privilege about 4 or 5 weeks later that we were able to baptize them in water.
Wow.
And so it was really good. And we call them Peter and Paul. That's not their real names, but, to protect them. But, those are some of the testimonies that are happening, that we see that every so often that come.
I think, too, one of the things that is like, I feel like when people are out of their home country and their home context, or even just their own, if you moved from Michigan to Wisconsin or something, that's when they're very open. And I feel like one of our goals as a church is that people grow in their walk with God. And this is a time when they might not have people around them that are the family and friends. And so they're looking for a family. So if we can rub each other and grow each other in Christ, that's a huge, huge thing, I think, is to see that. And when people say when they leave, oh man, I grew so much while I was here at Riverside Church in Budapest, and then that makes you feel like, then that's why we're here. So
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
What's a food that you get in Budapest that you can't get here that you miss?
Ooh, chicken paprikash. Although Carmi can make it. She's a very good cook.
Oh, nice.
Chicken paprikash, which is like chicken with peppers and garlic and sour cream, and it has these little noodles on it underneath it. It's really good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
What
It
else?
sounds kind of Midwestern almost.
It's really good.
I love all of Hungarian foods. I think it's great. We live in a small town right now here in Wisconsin, so Greek and Mediterranean food is one of those things that I'm just like really missing at this point, because we have gyro places all over in our city that are pretty inexpensive for like $3 to grab a gyro. So you just can't get that on the roads here in Wisconsin, but it's a great thing to eat. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tyler.
And everybody listening, go ahead. We encourage you to continue to support Kingdom Builders so that we can support missionaries like the Buckleys and many others all over the world. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.